What's up, everybody? Dante Crisis here, and I want to talk about some comments made by Sony Computer Entertainment Worldwide President Shuhei Yoshida made at DICE 2015. 'Cause I think some good points came up in it, and I did want to just give my 2 cents on it. Alright, well, first of all, he starts off by saying and talking about how there's a big divide between marketing and salespeople as well as game developers. And back in the days of the original PlayStation, sequels were seen as a wasted expense and were a risky venture to go into, which is why there was very few sequels back in the day, if not done by the first party. This is usually, I believe, third party developers. And the reason why they didn't do this is because it was risky to more financial driven teams, basically saying that marketing people were the more financial people, the ones who focus more on the sales, where the game developers would have done them. It goes on to then say that when marketing teams realised how much money can be done by year-to-year sequels, that's when we saw the influx of games that he compared to, like the Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed styles, which come out annually. And he even said publicly in this that he does not agree, and that he literally, quote, he hates annualized releases and wish they didn't happen. He then goes on to say about why Sony got the name and they went with Sony Computer Entertainment rather than Sony Game Entertainment. It's because they were trying to go towards a more adult market with the console when the PlayStation 1 came out. He then goes on to also say that the emphasis on 3D graphics, proper animations and use of disc over cartridges helped the PlayStation succeed despite industry-wide skepticism. Fuck's sake. Sorry, I can't say that word. God damn it. And he ended up closing the discussion, acknowledging game launch difficulties, delays, the massive DOS attack on PlayStation Network, which also happened to Xbox. And all of this kept him up at night. I'll get into that in a moment. And he also admits that Sony put tremendous resources, hardware and software development, but he also admits that they didn't put the same emphasis on network development. So he pretty much just closes out on that. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top and start from the very beginning. I wish there was the middle ground between the early days of PlayStation and, like, the days of today, where sequels were rare. Sequels would come out if the game was good enough, but they were given time to work on them. Because I completely, like I say, I'm gonna be unbiased as possible on this. But I agree with him completely that games like the Call of Duty franchise, like, there's some that you can't escape from. The games like the sports games like FIFA, Madden, PGA, NFL, NBA, those come out yearly, and in some respects you can see the reason behind it. They have a gameplay style that you can improve on, but not dramatically. The core value of that game is pretty much what's been in there from the start. There's not much you can do to add on to that apart from adding features. But with games like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty, there's no excuse. You can do so many different things with it. And you saw, and I'll give you an example, like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I've stated on my channel that I regret purchasing that game, and I sent it and I pretty much got a refund 2 days later. Well, I sold it off 2 days later. And the reason why is because it basically turned around and said they're going to be innovative, they're going to try something new, and all they added was a jetpack. Like, that's not innovative. That's already adding something that already existed into a pre-existing thing. Everything about the game will still scream Call of Duty. The same set pieces where shit goes wrong, something big blows up. Everything's the same down to the multiplayer as well. Everything feels the same, just the added effects of jump packs. Just everything seems like it's still in a corridor. And Assassin's Creed, they've tried innovating, yeah, and they added fucking microtransactions as well, and that's fucking stupid. I don't want microtransactions into my fucking AAA games. So many people have said this, and I completely agree. I don't want it. it's got a horrible fucking stigma around it thanks to microtransactions on mobile games. In some games they can work, like MMOs, microtransactions can work, but they need to be balanced the fact where it doesn't feel like it's a pay-to-win situation. And there's even a chance that microtransactions will be in the new Mortal Kombat, which has really put a stinker on that because I was really looking forward to buying Mortal Kombat X. Now, before I completely go on and on, going back to why, going back to why annualized games, and the problem is someone's going to bring in the fact that, oh, but with Call of Duty, they've now got 3 studios working on it a 3-year basis, Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, and Treyarch. And to that I say, the problem is with those 3 companies, they're still working on a basis that they know will sell. Call of Duty, to me, has felt the same since Modern Warfare. In fact, it's felt, yeah, since the original first Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4. No innovation to gameplay has happened, from multiplayer to anything like that. They've added some things, but in the end, they've taken them out in later games, or they've just been fucking bad to begin with. I mean, you got the dog in Call of Duty Ghosts, but that just felt like a small little drone thing that's happened in other Call of Duty games. So there's nothing really new to the franchise. Like this, I feel like if they really sat down, took probably 2-3 years to think about it, got all their fucking collective heads together, they could come up with a Call of Duty that feels brand new. Fucking phone's going off, dude. Shit. Yeah, they could come up with something that feels like Call of Duty, but it's fresh and it revitalizes my interest and the interest of other people who have just got sick of it in the genre. Problem is that isn't going to happen because Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed sell like fucking hotcakes. As soon as it comes in, it's gone. So yeah, I can completely agree on his antithesis on hating annual games, but I'm going to be honest, in fairness, if you look at the grand, huge scheme of it all, there is the only annual games off the top of my head that I can think of are the Madden game, basically the sports games, Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. They're literally the only annual games I can think of. And I'm just looking over to my collection. I'm thinking if there's any others, and there's not. I can't think of any other annual games. So if they limit it to just that, I'm cool with that because you've got other games like Halo. Despite how bad the launch with that one turned out, but that's happened all across the board, to be fair. Games like Legend of Zelda, Mario, you got games like Metroid, which are sequels in of themselves, Killzone. These games, there's more non-annualized sequels coming out than non-annualized games. Okay, so small things, but I think I'll talk about it. Sony Computer Entertainment, and the reason why I didn't go with Sony Game Entertainment. I completely agree, because they were going into a market that was very dominated by Nintendo and Sega, pretty much the 2 big ones, and they needed to stand out from the rest. And Sony, to their credit, did stand out from Nintendo and Sega on a hardware and visual standpoint. They wanted to act more mature. They wanted to come as the more mature, because obviously Nintendo was seen as the family-friendly console. They still feel that way that they are today, even though a majority of their fans have been playing Nintendo since, Jesus Christ, since the Super Nintendo. Like I've played Nintendo consoles since the Super Nintendo. And Sega, well, it's hard to even assume what Sega was. Like, Sega was just like that middle ground. But PlayStation 1 with a more mature thing, and it's a small little thing, but I think that calling themselves Sony Computer Entertainment was the smart move. I think calling themselves Sony Computer Entertainment was the smart move. Okay, now this is something that I don't fully agree with, because they talk about 3D graphics and proper animation. Yeah, as far as 3D graphics, like, Nintendo was doing the same thing, like, with Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong 64. Like, yeah, Nintendo, to me, I'd say the way that Nintendo handled 3D graphics I'm probably in the minority of this, but I'd say the 3D graphics on the Nintendo 64 looked a hell of a lot better on the Sony ones. It's just that Sony had bigger blockbuster games. They had more of them out there, and the fact that you also had discs, which it's pretty much fact and stated that were more easier to produce than cartridge-based games. It's a fact. Okay, this is the last one I'm going to talk about, and it's pretty much the hot potato on all of this, and it comes with game launch difficulties, delays, and the massive DOS attacks across the board. All right, as well as the last part. Okay, game launch difficulties. The thing is with me, it seems like most game launch difficulties have been coming from third-party developers. I've got quite a few games in my collection on PlayStation 4. I can only speak off second-hand stories for Xbox games because I don't own an Xbox One yet. But most games that have had launch difficulties, like the big ones, have been third-party games. When I got Killzone Shadowfall, I had no graphical issues or anything like that. It was running really smooth. And then you got games like Battlefield 4, another one where it felt rushed. And obviously, the biggest one in Review Tech USA said this, that Master Chief Collection's a big, massive failure because of all the fucking problems that's had. But like I said, I can't speak on that from my first-hand experience. It's obviously second-hand I'm speaking of this. Now, as far as delay goes, delays don't bother me so much. Delays only bother me when the game comes out still broken. For example, I'm looking forward, as much as I've given Battlefield 4 shit in the past, I'm looking forward to Battlefield Hardline because of Visceral and DICE, because they've split the workload. Obviously, Visceral's doing the single player, DICE doing the multiplayer. They've split the workload. And the fact that got delayed and there's been 2 betas, if that game comes out broken, I'm going to lose my shit, because the idea of delays is that you work on existing problems and you make sure the game is out as good as possible. Like, you make sure all fucking major glitches and such are ironed out before it's released. Not like Assassin's Creed Unity, where you had fucking disappearing faces which will haunt me for the rest of my life. So it's a double-edged sword, in my opinion, as far as delays go. You've got delays where it makes sense because you feel that they're looking at the game and trying to smooth out the rough edges. But then when it comes out terrible, there's no excuse. There was no excuse for it to be delayed. And now the second to last, the massive DOS attack. Okay, from what I've heard from people saying and looking up myself, you cannot properly ready yourself for a DOS attack. When it hits, it will hit. There's from what I've read, there's no way of avoiding a DOS attack. When a DOS attack hits, the only thing you can do is damage control. Is get it up and gone as quickly as possible. That's from my understanding. So this leads into the next part, which is they wish they put more emphasis on the network. And in my response to that is, no shit. Like, Sony, you need to equal the amount of effort you put into the hardware, software, and fucking everything else into the network. You need to have people on call 24/7 who know what the fuck they're doing, so that when shit like this happens, it is not down. I mean, it does not happen. I mean, for fuck's sake, Microsoft actually had that shit going up and going again faster than you did. Yours was down for an additional 2-3 days, I believe. That doesn't bother me because I'm not a huge, massive multiplayer guy. I prefer single player, which is why I love games like Wolfenstein New Order, why I'm looking forward to the Order 1866, why I would want to play the Master Chief Collection, because I would love to play all of the single players. That's basically 4 fucking games in one. And also, other games. But it's if I did want to play, like let's use an example. I've done some videos on the hardline beta. What if that does happen now? I would be completely screwed in doing those videos because they've only released the online. If the DOS attack happened now, I'd be fucked. You guys need to get your shit together, get more manpower. I know you're having financial troubles and shit, but you need to get more experienced manpower behind all of your fucking network, so when this shit happens again, you can sweep it up and fuck it off as quickly as possible. So that's essentially where we left it, and I'll admit, it's nice to see like a big head guy like him, especially in the position he's in, actually talk about this stuff. Especially admitting Sony's faults, that he essentially says that they fucked up as far as network resources and allowing the DOS attack to go on as long as possible. So yeah, that's all I've got for this. So thanks for watching. I'm Dante Crisis, signing off.